because it turns out that you could be more courageous than you think. It also turns out that if you put yourself in a situation where you face the things you're afraid of, you find out that there's way more to you than you thought. So, back to how you treat someone if they're afraid. So, you flood them with balloons while they're relaxed. And then they're not afraid of balloons anymore. And that actually works. If you do it 5 or 6 times, then all you had to do is have them voluntarily expose themselves to what they were afraid of. It's like, man, that was a major league discovery. And it turns out that pretty much every school of clinical psychology has come to agree on that. How do you help someone with what they're afraid of? And this is important because we're afraid of life, right? So if you figure out how you help someone overcome their fear, like that's a big deal because you're afraid of life, and you should be, because life will kill you. And so it's no wonder you're afraid of it. And so what are you going to do about that? And it's not like people who have phobias and so far aren't afraid of things that are harmful. They're often afraid of things that are harmful. And the mystery is often why other people aren't afraid, not why they are. So, well, how do you help someone become less afraid? You actually don't. You actually help them become more courageous. That's a cool thing, because that's not the same thing. It's like, because life actually is dangerous, and if your ability to prevail in life is dependent on you not being afraid of life, it's like, well, that's kind of a non-starter, because there's lots of things in life to be afraid of. And so if to be successful, you had to be not afraid of life, it's like, well, forget about that, because, if you're on someone's deathbed, then there's going to be some emotion associated with that. We're actually afraid of death, and we're afraid of insanity, and we're afraid of betrayal, and we're afraid of pain, and no bloody wonder, that's for sure. And so if not being afraid was necessary, well, then we're lost. But that isn't what's necessary. What's necessary is to be courageous. And that's very, very cool, because it turns out that you could be more courageous than you think. It also turns out that if you put yourself in a situation where you face the things you're afraid of, you find out that there's way more to you than you thought. And what's also cool about that is it doesn't seem to be any upper limit to that, because it isn't obvious that there's anything that you can't face without learning how to face it. And I mean anything. I mean, you think about it, right? People work at emergency wards, right? So think about that. What they do is have emergencies all the time. And you think, well, an emergency is something you can't tolerate almost by definition. It wouldn't be an emergency otherwise. But people specialize in that, so obviously they get used to it. People work in palliative care wards. That's rough. Everybody there is suffering and is going to die soon, and then they do die. So not only are you dealing with that, you deal with loss, just endless loss. People work in funeral parlors, so they're dealing with death all the time. It's like people are bloody tough. You have to relax in order to face the things that you're afraid of. You just have to bloody well face them.